Hello and welcome to All Indians Matter. I am Ashraf Engineer. A couple of weeks ago, when India beat Pakistan in a league match of the Asia Cup T20 cricket tournament, the country erupted in celebration. We had beaten our arch rivals, and social media were awash in celebratory posts. Among those was one by Saima Rahman and RJ. On Twitter, she wrote, "Yay, we won! What a match! Thriller! Hashtag India versus Pak." It was an expression of pure joy. But what response does she get? A user named Rishi Bagri writes, "No, ma'am, it is India that has won the match." It was typical of the hate filled, vulgar, and abusive posts so common today that target women, especially Muslim women and women in the media. If you happen to be a Muslim woman in the media, it doesn't even raise an eyebrow anymore, it's normalized. But it can't be normal for those who are the targets of such attacks. It must be impacting them at an emotional level. It must be a scary spot to be in. It must make them feel vulnerable and undefended. Today, we talk to Saima to understand precisely that.
All Indians matter.
RJ Saima, as she's better known, is an artist and a radio presenter. She has completed her master's and MPhil in social work from Delhi University. She qualified as a lecturer after clearing the national eligibility test but chose passion over qualification. Saima started her radio journey with All India Radio as a presenter in English and a national newsreader. Some years later, she joined Radio Mirchi as the host of the much acclaimed Hindi retro night show Purani Jeans, which stayed at number one of the charts for 14 years before shutting in 2017. Now, the same show goes to many cities of the US and India. Saima also hosts 12 to 3 in Delhi. The award winning RJ brought the heart wrenching, soul stirring stories of Saadat Hassan Manto to a private radio station in a series called Ek Purani Kahani, and she keeps the tradition of Urdu poetry alive through her recitals of Ghalib, Faiz, Kaifi Azmi, and others. With a fan following of more than a million, she's a social media celebrity. And in the digital world, she's rocking it with her video series Urdu Poetry and P for Pronunciation. She also hosts Urdu Ki Pathshala on social media. Saima, Adab, welcome.
Adab Ashraf, thank you so much for having me here on this show. And I'm just looking so forward to have a nice chat with you.
Before we start, I must say, now I know what it feels like to be the non-striker of Sachin Tendulkar, because you have somebody who's in that space, who's such an artist and is such a master at what they do. I mean, the guy at the other end, it doesn't matter how good or bad he is, he's always going to feel a little as if he's always going to be playing catch up. I'll try to do that on this show. But Saima, tell us about that day. Who is this person who sent you that response after your tweet, and what went through your mind when you read it?
Ashraf, I have to say this that really the names have ceased to matter today. You're asking me who that person was, and I'll tell you it's every fourth person today who talks like that, who thinks like that, who makes a comment like that, who harbors a feeling like that. And it has become so normalized, as you put it before, that it's very disturbing at some level. When I say this, I have to say that a comment like this is not an abnormal comment for me. Since the time I remember, gaining that consciousness of an identity in this country, from my school days, this communal slurring has been a part of our life. But the big difference is that when it used to happen then, it was one person doing it against others standing by me. What has changed is the equation. Now, it is the 80 talking like that and one person standing by me. So, somebody calling me a Pakistani or somebody saying that आप औरंगजेब की पूजा करती हो, or somebody saying that why do you offer namaz, or somebody saying that why do you slaughter a goat in your festival, and all these things are not new. We've been through all this. It's been a part of our upbringing. It's been a part of all the days that we have lived so far. But the difference is, and the most disturbing part is, that it's now okay to talk to me like that in people's mind. It's somewhere okay for them to not feel guilty about, attacking me for my identity. That is not okay. I remember when I was a kid and I was in a Sikh institution. It was, a Sikh institution. We were the only Muslims there, me, my sister, and my brother. And there used to be this one class called divinity class in which all the religious history of Sikhism was being taught, and we were asked to learn the bodies of Japji Sahib and all that, and we used to be a part of all that. And a couple of times the teacher actually targeted us, saying that, oh, you will not be able to learn this because for you Aurangzeb is the god, and stuff like that. And we used to go and complain to the principal about this, that how can a teacher talk to me like that? But today, somebody comes on a social media platform and has the audacity to talk to me like that in front of the entire world and has absolutely no fear of repercussions is the disappointing change, is something that I'm really concerned about. And maybe that's why we're talking about it.
Absolutely. And is this a very common occurrence with you? Does this happen every day, all the time?
I think after social media has come into our lives, yes, it happens every day. It happens so much that now I have started, looking over it. I know that any comment that I put up there, any status that I put up there, there will be somebody, there will be some people who would be writing things which would be about me being a Muslim, me being a woman, me being a public figure. And that is it. I mean, it will be a very condescending remark. It will be a very disruptive remark. It will be very humiliating remark. So yeah, every day, because we're on social media, talking to the world every day. So yeah, we get to hear it every day.
Have you tried reporting such posts to the police or any other authority?
Really, Ashraf, do I need to report something that is out there in the public?
Yeah.
I have to say this, that Delhi police follows me on Twitter. I'm sure they are watching everything that's been written for me or for other Muslim women. In fact, why are we even saying Muslim women? They write like this for every woman. So, of course, we are ticking all the wrong boxes for people today that really disturb them. And they don't like outspoken people. They don't like people who can question the establishment, who can question the regime. They don't like people of other religion. They don't like people of other caste. They don't like women and girls opening their mouth. So, and just imagine, like, we tick all the wrong boxes. So, yeah, you'll be like doubly targeted.
Saima, a survey conducted a couple of years ago by the NGO Plan International, which works for children's rights and equality for girls in India, said that 58% of women have faced online harassment or abuse. As a result, 19% have left or significantly reduced the use of social media platforms, while another 12% have changed the way they express themselves. How do you react to that?
I think the percentage is less. I think almost every woman out there would face online harassment by the fact that, they belong to the women community, they're women. Every woman out there, every woman on social media will be trolled because of her gender. So I think the percentage is 100%. Maybe women who are saying that they've never faced it, maybe they're not the ones who are like really actively consuming it. They're coming on and off and maybe writing things which are not disruptive. So yeah, maybe they're those women, but that's the percentage. And Ashraf, the thing is that, when there was no social media, you could have privacy. That's the word. You know, if I'm sitting in my room, I know there's nobody who's going to come. But if I'm on social media, I'm never in that private, enclosure. So I have invited the entire world out there. it's bound to happen much more because we are a patriarchal society. And now it's like anybody who is speaking or is outspoken is right there on your face. They can't take it. So I do not think, of course, it's a disturbing data, but it's a disturbing data which has been there since the time I, remember being alive, I think. And the saddest part is that it should have improved a little, but there is no change. It's the same. In fact, it's deteriorating because the more you expect to see the change, the more you're getting disappointed every single day. Also, because your authorities in the system, they are also not doing anything to protect it, to ensure that it doesn't happen. I mean, imagine we're talking about a country where rapes happen every few minutes and where, the rapists are garlanded. So it is the hope. This is something we wouldn't have heard like 20 years back, but now we are hearing. So, yeah, we seem to be like going back, and that's the disturbing part.
Yeah, I was going to say that it seems to be a low number. It's much higher. What I found particularly disturbing, Saima, in the study was that nearly half of the girls targeted had been threatened with physical or sexual violence. Now, could you describe the mental toll it takes on a woman?
We need to understand why there is a pattern to online trolling of women. It will always be a physical abuse because they know that if you physically abuse a woman, it will have mental repercussions and you'll be able to, dominate her in one way. So basically, what they do is the 3Ds that we talk about in the online trolling space, which is deception, disruption, and destruction. That's what they target. The moment they talk about her body, they know they will be able to hit it where it hurts. The moment they talk about, their gender identity, and the moment they abuse them, they know they will not be able to take it. They will go quiet. These are all mechanisms, very, tried and tested mechanisms of patriarchal domination. And if one understands that what is it that they get after abusing you online or morphing your pictures or just releasing nude photographs and Photoshop photographs of yours or do an online auction of you on some app, you know what they're doing. They're trying to shut you up. They're trying to show you your place. When you understand that, then the whole thing is disturbing. But in my mind, and I'm only talking about myself, I'm not talking about every other girl out there because everybody has a very different way of, coping with a thing like that. So for me, when it used to happen, let's say way back in 2015, 16, it used to be like, my God, what is this? Why is somebody writing like this? I mean, why is somebody abusing me in public? How dare he? And then you started seeing a pattern out there that come what may, this is their way of doing it. So maybe, my upbringing has put that sense in me that unless it's my fault, I won't even take an accusation or an abuse seriously. So I'm pretty like thick-skinned that way, that you do whatever you want to do. I mean, that talks about you. It doesn't talk about me. Whatever you want to do. Of course, there are certain very disturbing things that I would talk about, but when somebody, puts out an abuse out there or puts out a morphed picture out there or just, is trying to digitally sexually harass you online, all I do is I ignore it. I'm like, this is their standard and that's all that they know how to, what to do online. But there are certain very disturbing things, Ashraf, which I would like to talk about as far as online trolling is concerned, which really, really affected me for some time. And that is spreading fake news about you. When somebody in an organized way accuses you of something you haven't done, accuses you of things you haven't spoken, spreads lies about you, publishes them online, Earlier, you could get up and slap a case of defamation against them. But what do you do when it's happening by publications which are supported by the government? Every single thing that they're writing about you is only and only lie. But how do you debunk that? That really affects me. For example, during Delhi riots, when we were trying to reach out to victims, families, and stuff, trying to help people during the entire CA and RC time, we were doing a whole lot of things, which was basically a fundamental right to peaceful protest, right to speak against a particular rule. And this is my fundamental right in this country. And that's why we are a democracy, right? But to turn everything into an accusation of sorts, saying that, oh, she's responsible for Delhi riots. When I talk to like my friends, they would say, come on, you can just like ignore it. But the thing is, you are publishing a lie about me. And it's going to so many, people. And I do not get a platform or a window or a chance to say this is a complete lie. That trolling really disturbs me. And there are so many people in the jail today who are victims of such lies. Lies have been circulated about them, and they're going through such a difficult time. So, this entire culture of fake news, which has disrupted many lives around me, and all of us who chose to speak against injustice, who chose to exercise our fundamental right to protest, peaceful protest, we've all suffered on those counts. And the suffering continues because we will not be, quiet. That's not what we've learned. So that is the trolling part which really disturbs me. Not the abuse part and stuff. I mean, that's like, what can I do about people's standards? I can't. But yeah, they must know that that's not going to really have any, they're not going to be successful on with that strategy, with me at least.
Yeah, and I think that it's a very important point that you make about the lies and then the subsequent repercussions of those lies. I'm assuming you're referring to people like Umar Khalid and Siddiq Kapan, who are still in jail. I think Siddiq has been granted bail, but that's one case. I think there's another case in which he's still awaiting bail. And in fact, this afternoon I read that he's actually having trouble finding sureties, so that which is one of the conditions of posting bail. So even if he is able to raise the amount, he's unable to find sureties. But anyway, that's a separate discussion. I'm just trying to understand, Saima, the mindset of the people who find the need to silence women and even very young girls in this manner.
Yeah, see, the thing is, it's all an organized lobby out there. That is what we need to understand. There's not a random guy who's standing on the street and abusing you. It's not like that. It's an organized lobby. They have a plan in place. They basically say that people who raise their voices, who have the guts to talk, who have the guts to speak against what we think is right, we have to silence them. They know if they're going to speak to a girl in a certain manner, she's going to back off. She will say, I don't want to get into this dirty business. So that's their first attempt. And it's all organized. It doesn't happen by one person. See, if one person writes something like that to me or to anybody, we can ignore. But what happens is there's a troll army that comes. And it's a very organized, syndicated attempt on your timeline, on your handle. See, the bigger the attempt to silence you, the more influential you are, the more powerful voice you are. So in a way, it's a compliment, actually. We time and again we see trend hashtags hashtags against Farah, against Rana Ayub, you know, compliments to them. These are compliments to them because those are the voices which will not get silenced by your organized trolling. And they have the guts to speak up, and their voices matter. So, and the moment they go after a simple girl who, like, it happened in the Bully Buy case app, that there were 100, women and girls list who were put on an auction site. Who were they? Some of them had never even written anything about anything on social media. It was just their name which was being targeted because they were Muslims. They were picked up and they were being harassed. I have to say this, Ashraf, that I went through this online trolling and harassment pretty early, and after that, every girl who gets trolled out there, I make it a point to reach out to that person and to tell her that I understand what you must be going through. You must be having sleepless nights and you must be thinking, God, what's going to happen? Is there a crowd which is going to land up, in front of my door? Are they going to land in front of my office? Because we must never, ever underplay the dangers that it might bring. That organized trolling attack on social media is not a lone attempt. There are some people who are doing it as a matter of design, but there are others who are getting brainwashed looking at that. So there can be one person who doesn't even know what I'm talking about, has just read this on social media by somebody who thinks, who basically he looks up to. And he says, okay, he's saying that she is a bad girl and she needs to be made to learn a lesson. That lone person can actually end up in front of my door and do harm to me. That is the real fear.
Absolutely, I think that's and it takes only one person, right? Let me ask you something else that I think, I know the answer to, but it's important that you voice it. Do you think social media platforms are doing enough to guard against such abuse and targeting? And if you have ever reported such handles to, let's say, Twitter or any other social media platform, what has been your experience?
Social media handles, each and every social media handle that we're talking about, platform that we're talking about, all of them have failed to arrest the attempts of online harassment. They have failed to stand up to gender attacks. They have failed to stand up to any injustice that happens to a common person. They do not have their policies in place. They do not have their actions in place. And even if one action happens, like, one handle gets suspended, we celebrate it in a way as if, something big has happened. I mean, that should be the norm, right? Anybody who abuses online should be suspended like that. But social media handles or platforms also know that abusing, harassing, all these things are big content for them. They get great traction. Every other day, there is some abuse with the name of a person which is trending on Twitter. And those handles are having a field day. So, no, I mean, I will say it very, very upright
So
and
it's traffic,
without.
really, that you're saying.
Absolutely. And they're enabling. They're actually enabling harassers and they're enabling harassment.
Saima, I want to refer to another survey, and this one was by Amnesty International in 2020. It said Muslim women were subjected to 94.1% more trolling when compared to women from other ethnicities and religions. Now, this is a manifestation of the growing religious extremism and so called right wing nationalism, isn't it? Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the nature of politics today in our country is only and only communal. There is nothing, it's not hidden. It's all about divide and rule, but this time on the basis of religion, maybe. And a certain community is perpetually targeted. Muslims are perpetually targeted for everything, everything. We would be targeted. I always say this that, before 2014, in public, I would never let a person talk about my religious identity. Not because I wanted to hide it, but because I always say this and maintain this. It's a very personal thing. I will not let anybody, share this space with me. बचपन से, अब्बू अम्मी ने हमेशा ये बताया, अल्लाह से मेरा रिश्ता मेरा जाती रिश्ता है, उसमें अम्मी अब्बू तक की शिरकत नहीं. So who is anybody else? So before 2014, I was like, I'm just Saima. Don't talk to me like a Muslim. In fact, when the transition started happening, Ashraf, it was funny that, after 2014, when I started writing on Twitter, and each time I would write, like I would do Manto stories, people writing, the comments on Manto stories would be like, why don't you go to Pakistan? Are? And I would be like troubled, saying, Ye kya hai? Why are they writing like this? How does it elicit a response like that? And then my followers started increasing, and I actually started becoming a prominent name on that platform. And people would say, why your followers are increasing or why you're becoming a little bigger on social media? Because you are a Muslim girl. And that would irk me. That would really irk me. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? When have I ever spoken like a Muslim that I would get traction just because I'm a Muslim girl? I remember saying no to so many news shows and panel discussions where they would want me in the capacity of being a Muslim girl. And I would say, no, that's not my identity. I will not talk like a Muslim. Because the day I started doing public broadcasting, my first lesson was that when I switch on that mic and I start talking to another person, I have no religion. I don't have a religion. I'm a secular person. I'm pro-individual. I follow the Constitution of India. So I never spoke like a Muslim. I never connected like a Muslim. So when that started happening, it was very uncomfortable for me. And I would be like, and then people would say, what, are you ashamed of being a Muslim? And I'm like, no, but that's not a space I want to share with you. It's a very personal space. And seriously, Ashraf, today, it's like this. They have targeted me for my identity so much that I think I am trying to understand my religion and faith in a much better way. I think I'm closer to my religion and faith because somewhere I feel, oh God, I need to guard it. How dare they attack me for my, identity? Yes, that is my identity. Now it's almost like, do you know who I am? It's so, the transition has happened. And I would actually say that unfortunately, today, the public identity is that I am a progressive Muslim girl. I really hope that it would have just been a progressive girl, but it is a progressive Muslim girl. We talk about Muslim women a lot. There's somebody who's got to sit down and do a podcast like that with Muslim men. They suffer much more, and they've been suffering for much longer. And to the extent that somewhere they've internalized that, they would not talk about it or they wouldn't, aisa to hota hi aaya hai. I talk to a whole lot of Muslim men, okay? And I tell them that this is wrong. Why are they targeting? And the response that I get from them is, kya naya hai yaar? To ho hi raha hai kab se? That's when I realize maybe they have been a victim of this for a much longer period of time. And they have almost like internalized it when they shouldn't have had, but they have. And when I talk about it, there is nothing new for them. It's like they've always been called with those condescending, what should I say, stereotyped names like a mullah or a whatever. They've always been called, addressed with whatever. I mean, Sikh titles. They've always been called a Pakistani. They've always been called a whatever. And they're like, hota aaya hai. So maybe we need to like wake them up and say that it's not right. You should stand up against it. So I guess, Yeah, we're talking about Muslim girl. Yeah, and I think after social media, we've realized that girls can also go on a global platform and talk to the entire world like that. So it's like a new experience for us, but something that I think Muslim men have been facing day in and day out, because they've been out there publicly mingling with a whole lot of people every single day, and somewhere maybe internalized it.
Yeah, exactly. I think what women have been called and all thing for Muslim men is jihadis and mullahs, and just to digress slightly, I mean, I sometimes feel that this is something that was there within people for a long, long time, and with the advent of social media, with the advent of self-publishing, it's just that you realize that no, I'm not the only one who's thinking like that. And if 100 other people are thinking like that, then it's okay for me also to think like that. It's okay for me also to abuse. It's okay for me to call people names. I remember I was in engineering college. This was just after Babri. It must have been 93 or 94. And, a guy, a classmate of mine, comes at something. I mean, we were talking, there was some conversation around Babri. And a classmate of mine comes up to me and says that, you always have Pakistan to go to. Where do we go? And so now this is exactly the kind of line that is being parroted today. Now we are talking 30 years down the line, and that's why I feel sometimes that perhaps this sort of thing existed but really wasn't being vocalized as much, and with social media perhaps that kind of platform has been given. But Simon, let me talk a little bit about gender right now. Do you think gender socialization and the differential conditioning that women go through has created different narratives and standards for men and women? So men can be boorish and vulgar and be considered bold and outspoken, while women are expected to be docile and submissive. And therefore, when a woman does speak her mind, she's a threat and must be silenced to preserve the gender hierarchy.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, the entire game plan, I'd like to call it a game plan, is this, that they exactly know how it works. They exactly know that somewhere in the mind of a girl, she would have to snatch, the position of equality. You won't get it the easy way. It will always come in a different way. So this entire upbringing and internalization and the way patriarchy has been functioning, everything is according to that game plan. And if I might even add, Ashraf, here, that it's not just the men who think like that, it's the women also who think like that. So when, I am being trolled online on social media, it's not always just the men who troll me, it's the women who troll me. And when we have seen that all our, women ministers in power are silent about rape convicts being garlanded. When the bully Bai case happened, when we were auctioned online, there was not a single word from Ministry of Women and whatever empowerment, child empowerment, whatever it is, child welfare. So I'm saying that patriarchy is enabled by a mindset which is patriarchal. And that mindset is shared both by men and women. And when it comes from women, it is doubly disappointing. It's very hurtful. It's almost like whatever happened to, we who have suffered in a similar way. So the patriarchal mindset is what goes after you, is what goes after an outspoken voice. And that can happen through both the genders. I mean, men and women alike. So, yeah, and they do not. And the society just does not like women talking. And they hate women talking sense because they mustn't touch the balance of, okay, it's oxymoronical, but balance of inequality. They mustn't disturb that. They've got to be here, and the women are supposed to be here. How how dare do they even think that they can come up? So they will do everything to put them in place. and the attack. And if you are successful and popular, and you are looking into their eye and challenging every bit of their regressive regime every single day, then it becomes more problematic for them. And they will come after you in a much more aggressive way.
So many of these threats, perhaps most of them actually, come from handles projecting a Hindutva ideology. Now, this is disturbing because the government champions the Hindutva ideology. So, how do you react?
There is only one answer to that. All of them have backing of the system. All of them are protected by the establishment. And when I say that, I would say the establishment is doing, maybe it is a part of the plan of the establishment. There is no other reason why wouldn't you stop them. If the ideology basically says, see, it's very easy to understand, Ashraf. Somebody says that we've got to be the rulers. They will have to put somebody under subjugation, right? How else do they become rulers? So that's exactly what's happening. The entire narrative is majority versus minority. So while in a democracy, it is the responsibility of the majority to ensure that the minority feels secured. Look what's happening. Because their vision, their ideology, their dream is to have majority take, the entire pie. So they will have to snatch the pie from others. And we are the others. So every single person who trolls me is carrying that Hindutva identity. They're right wingers. Let me put it like that. They're all right wingers. And it includes people with verified handles. It includes people who are being followed by the highest chairs of the establishment. It is by people who have large number of followers, and their bio talks about how they are so anti you, anti your community, anti a particular religion. So, you look at their bio and you say, oh God, now I know why he has written like that. Because I'm a kind of person, Ashraf, who would want to take constructive feedback. If I put out something and a video maybe, and somebody doesn't like it, I'd like to understand what is wrong with the video. So initially, when I would put out the Manto stories and there would be reactions to that, and negative reactions to that, I would actually engage with the person, trying to understand what is it that you haven't liked. And then I realized, God, I'm banging my head against the wall because they're doing it in a very strategic way. And here I am trying to understand the human angle in it. There is no human angle in it. And, Ashraf, at this point, I'd like to go back to something that you had said earlier, where you said that, so it seems that this mindset existed all along. They always wanted it this way. A normal person, a normal citizen of India. My answer to that is, Ashraf, I see it a little differently. Each one of us has two voices, the bad and the good, right? And when we are in the right company, among the right people, we can identify the bad voice in us and hide it because we would feel ashamed of telling the other person that, listen, you're not an equal. Every person thinks like that. Every person thinks somewhere that, he or she is superior to the other person. But I would hesitate in telling the other person that, listen, don't stay here. I would hesitate, so I would hold myself back. I know that's not the right voice, conscience. But the moment that wrong voice gets fanned, somebody comes and tells me, no, you're absolutely thinking the right way. That's exactly what it is. These guys, they're going to grow in number and they will rule us. Look at what Mughals did. There is a voice constantly feeding me, brainwashing me, actually validating and empowering the bad voice inside me. Of course, I've been thinking like that all along. Now it's been validated. Now, even the system is saying like that. Even the leaders I look up to, they are saying the same thing. So maybe I was thinking right all this while. And it's no more wrong. And every person thinks like that. Little example from our lives. When we try and segregate the utensils and say, okay, this is for my health and this is for me. Now, because I'm educated and I have a conscience, I would say this is wrong, Saima. We've got to be eating in the same plate. It gets washed every day. That's all right. I can't be making this distinction. So I'm constantly fighting with my wrong voice, but it's there. Now imagine tomorrow somebody comes and tells me, you were right. They were not supposed to share the plates, yeah? Don't they have their own separate plates? A constant, why should they? You have achieved it. You have gained it. That's what I wanted to do. And somebody is fanning it. So if my education is not strong, if my conscience is not strong, and conscience, Ashraf, is a very, very, I've realized it's an extinct quality. It's not alive in everybody. Actually, it's not alive in most of the people. It really disturbs you, right? You need amazing grit and determination to listen to your conscience. So, yeah, it exists in each one of us, is what I would say. The wrong and the bad and the voice of injustice, it exists in each one of us. But don't we have the urge to steal? But we know that's wrong. And we also know that we'll be punished for it. So we don't. That's the ego and superego theory, right? So yeah, the id is having like a field time, and maybe it is the call of conscience that has become our calling. Maybe this is for me. Personally, I feel this is the time when all my principles and values and the decision to listen to my conscience and stay truthful and everything that's being tested. It's examination time and I cannot back off.
Yeah. It's not just super ego, super board exams, as you would put it. But Saima, the abuse directed at Muslim media persons, especially, I'm referring to the women, yeah, has been especially shocking. You mentioned Rana Ayubia. She's regularly threatened with rape. I was given to understand that she's been threatened with acid attacks. I haven't read those tweets myself, but I have the others. It's just shocking, isn't it? You're a media person too.
It's very shocking, Ashraf. And I'm like I said, that it's not just shocking, it's very, very scary, extremely scary. Now imagine a person who's writing this day in and day out and is not being shut, is not being told that, action will be taken against you. He is now thinking that it is possible, that he could do it and get away with it. There are 15 people who come out after gang raping a woman, doing 11 murders. They come out of the jail and they're being garlanded by women. What is the message that's going out? For something that you should be maybe, banished for life, you being made a hero because of that. So the message that's going out is so wrong. We are fanning animal instincts. We are making barbarians. And the worst part is, a normal citizen, a normal person thinks that that animal is going to go after one person. Hello, he is a beast who is on a loose In a civilized society, he will come for every home. And Ashraf, the fear is real because they get away. Whatever happened to Gauri Rankesh? She was the very first, you know, reality check for us. Because online trolling doesn't remain online trolling. Online spread of fake news doesn't stay like that. It enters our lives. And sometimes it's too late. So yeah, I mean, it's very scary, and we need to constantly push the system in taking some step. Rana has been writing to the police authorities every single day, highlighting those comments, sharing the details. Neither Twitter nor other social media platforms or law and order system of our country is assuring her of her safety. It's a very scary situation. And that's why all of us need to be with her.
Absolutely, absolutely right. I mean, we absolutely need to stand by her. As you said, these things don't stay online. Gauri Lankesh's murder is proof of that. Doesn't stay online. How long before somebody lands up at your doorstep to make good on a threat like that? Saima, this sort of pressure, this threat, this fright almost, does it manifests itself in the form of fear even offline? So say when you step out to go to work or for a social event or even to the market, I mean, what's it like living with these constant threats? Does it also affect other aspects of your life, your work, your relationships with your family, your friends, significant others, etc.?
Of course it does, Ashraf. I will not mince words here. Of course it does. It disrupts your family life. It's not just you who's fearful now, it's your entire family who's carrying that fear in their hearts. No amount of assurance can, put their fears to rest. And it's so disturbing for a person like me to see my father worried or my mother worried or my family constantly, sending me messages saying that don't go there or go with somebody. This constant, I mean, this life of fear is something that is a jail in itself, right? And to see your own people getting disturbed because you chose to speak up. And I'm constantly worried about them. So it's very, very disturbing, extremely disturbing. And I must say this, that not many people realize that it takes a load out of you to take a stand, to decide to speak up. I see a lot of people, Ashraf, who are in positions of great influence and authority and holding those very responsible chairs of public service, being silent. And I am a nobody. I'm just a public figure. All I know is that I can and I must first do my duty of not being silent in the face of injustice, and second, being a public figure, even if I can set the direction of one heart, one misguided heart in the right direction, I think my life is done. Somebody writing to me saying, I used to hate you 2 years back. And now I am so, you know, guilty of that feeling because I read that and I read this. And for 2 years, I've been following you and I'm just following you to see, to catch you at some point, and I'm unable to. And now I know it was almost a sin to think like that for you. Ashraf, for me, that's the biggest reward of life. Maybe I'm alive because of that. Maybe that's exactly what I'm or every single human being is meant to do. Because one thing is very, very clear and sure in my case, Ashraf, I'm only talking about, you know, being popular this way is something that I don't enjoy. I don't get a high out of it. I want to be popular by doing my work, by doing good work, by actually sharing people's lives and just, becoming a good human being every single day so that people say that I want to be like her. I love it when parents write to me saying, we have named our daughter Saima. That's how I want to be, in the public space. I don't like this popularity where people float hashtags against me or, target me, and then you become like a bigger name. No, I don't like that popularity at all. I would not want to be there because of that. And I don't even gain anything out of it. But times are such that my conscience pricks me if I choose to be silent. And whenever I choose to be silent, Ashraf, I never choose to be silent for myself. That I've decided. There would always be somebody else who I would be thinking about and maybe be silent or maybe would speak up. Whenever I speak up for myself. In any sense of humanity that we must be following. And if I'm going to be silent, I'll be enabling that injustice. Anybody who's silent today is enabling that injustice. People say that, I'm silent, I'm not supporting it. Well, you're not opposing it, which means you are supporting it. It's like that one mob which is out there hitting one person. What, you're a spectator seeing the spectacle? If you don't have the guts to, go and disrupt the entire scene and do your bit, maybe call cops, maybe ask 10 people to say, let's barge and do something. You're doing nothing. You're enjoying the spectacle. You are enabling injustice. And Ashraf, I would go to the extent of saying times are so challenging right now that I'm not even sure the people who are silent, they're silent because they're scared, or they're silent because somewhere they think this is right. Because there is no reason for them not to speak up when 4 of us are sitting. What's the scare there? Why wouldn't they say that, what's happening is wrong? Why would they change the topic? Because in their heart, they feel it's okay, it's let it be. Maybe that's. But yeah, maybe when they'll wake up, and I really want and I really pray to God that I should be there for them. Even, God forbid, if they have to face injustice. I wish to sit with every single person who trolls me online. And I want to tell him that, buddy, you know what? Don't worry about me. Worry about yourself. You're going to be the first victim of the hate that you're harboring in your heart. It's going to come back to you. And you will actually be the first. You're already a victim. Look at what you are doing. You have such a negative life. But yeah, the times are such that maybe we don't have maybe someday it'll happen. Inshallah.
Inshallah. I want to come back to Bully Bhai. You mentioned it earlier, but you were among those who unfortunately found their names on the Bully Bhai auction app, along with several other Muslim women. And a few months ago, I interviewed Sadaf Jafar, who was also among the women who was listed there. And I asked her, what went through your mind? And she said, I felt so helpless. But at the same time, I also felt that, this is the level of the people that are targeting me, and I feel sorry for them too, just exactly what you said a few moments ago. So my question is, it's a twofold question. One is, how did you get to know you were listed, and how did you react? And second, have you spoken to any of the other women who are listed on the app?
So it was, we all remember the date because it was 1st of January, okay? And I woke up in the morning and I got a text by two of my journalist friends And they said that your name is in the list of these women on Bully Bai app. And I'm like, what is Bully Bai app? And they said it's like Sulli Bai, which happened 6 months back, where they create an app and they put, some girls and women for an online auction of sorts. And this time, your name is also there. So I said, what does that mean? And then they sent me a snapshot of how it looks like, and it had my picture, and I was deal of the day. And I said, okay. And then there were morphed pictures, and they started landing on my Twitter timeline and stuff. And my first reaction, Ashraf, to that was, what's new? It's been happening with me for so many years now. Morphed pictures, abuses, rape threats, talking about, every part of my body. Oh, it's new. So what? Well, they're going to auction me online. What does that even mean? So, but I decided one thing, that I'm not going to go into the app and check out all the horrible details about it. I said, I'm not going to do that. Then Ismat was there, Hasiba was there. These are, few girls I know of. So they started messaging me, and I understood that, oh, this is happening. Maybe this is happening with them for the first time. And they're pretty shocked. And I think Ismat lodged the FIR also against the same thing and all that. But there was the time, Ashraf, when I realized this. I'm thinking like this. What's new? It's been happening with me for so long. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want it to become like, so big that people have made it realize that, oh my God, it has had an impact on, these girls' life and stuff. I was thinking like that. But then what hit me was bigger, because that had a list of more than 100 Muslim women and girls. And the rest of the 98% were not that influential. And I knew I had to become their voice. I knew that I had to fight for them, what they must be going through in their families. Their parents, their siblings would be sitting with them and telling them, why the hell did you go on Twitter? It is all you're doing. Why did you have to write that? So they must be getting further victimized. And what really, really put me off that day was, excuse me, is this system going to be so shameless and so cheap about this entire thing that they wouldn't even talk, that they wouldn't even comment? Has this ever happened in this country before, that girls are being auctioned online in such a systematic way, and our ministers, central ministers, authorities, systems are silent about it? Is it going to happen like that? That's when I got really angry. And that's when I decided I'm going to speak up. And we will ensure that this becomes an international news. And we're going to go to every single door and tell them, this is what has happened to us. Not that we will not take it lying down. We're telling you, warning you, it's going to come to your girls as well. So it was a very conscious decision that I took. I had to, one, talk to the families of those girls, jinke naam the uspe. And the second was that this issue will not go just like that. It won't. Either the system actually gets up and says, we really validate this. I wanted to see how people would, justify this also. Or they would bloody well take some action. And I always have a lot of belief and hope. That's one thing I'll never leave till I breathe my last. There would be somebody out there with a conscience within the system. There's no dearth of good human beings. You just have to tell them you're not alone. I'm there with you. And then two would get up, and that two will speak, and the four would get up. You've got to, love is never organized. It's very organic, Hate is organized. So you have to just keep telling people you're not alone, and then you see the support. So that is what happened, and that's why I'm really glad that some action took place. The systems, of course, it's not never good enough. It's not good enough. those guys are out on bail, and the court, I mean, the judiciary also really doesn't mince any words and leaves no occasion to show the glaring injustice that's been happening and supporting it. But yeah, I hope some parents today are worried that maybe their children are getting so brainwashed into doing something as horrendous as this. Those are bright young minds. I was not shocked at all that they were like, 18 years or 17 years or 19 years and fine engineering students. I wasn't. That's exactly how, the extremists get made, right? We've all studied what goes into the making of a terrorist, how they are brainwashed. And it all starts very early. We all have studied it. We know the drill. And I really want people to wake up to this culture of everything wrong that is maybe satisfying their egos, for some time. What they're breeding in their gardens is a poisonous snake, which is getting into the habit of biting. And wake up for them.
Yeah. Before we proceed, I just wanted to tell listeners that Ismat, who you referred to as Ismat, are a journalist, and Hasiba, I think you were referring to Hasiba Amin, who's a Congress activist, right? And you were mentioning, before I move on, I think you were mentioning about morph pictures and things like that. It's gone beyond that. In some cases, people have published addresses of the women. In some cases, their phone numbers and so on. I remember Sadaf Jafar telling me that her address was actually put up on some billboards in Lucknow, which was quite shocking. Also, I find it very shocking, Saima, that very little legal action is taken against abusers, and you've actually touched upon that to quite some extent. And vulgarity, threats have become an accepted fact. Now, there are several laws against such practices, but they aren't really implemented with any sincerity. So, what would you tell the enforcers of laws, the police, the courts?
Ashraf, this is indicative of, the pathetic condition of our social fabric. It talks about the pathetic condition of our social fabric, the pathetic condition of our political fabric, the pathetic condition of a civilized society. When your systems become inoperational, when they fail to follow a certain rule, when they fail to ensure safety of the citizens. When I, as a citizen, feel shaky going to the police and reporting a crime because I feel, God, they will actually make me the accused of the crime that has happened with me. When I do not have trust in the system, it's a very sad commentary on every single institution. And really, Ashraf, I mean, if I only talk about myself, I don't feel safe. I don't feel confident in going and reporting a crime that has happened against me to the system because I fear that they're going to turn the entire game, into, I mean, जुल्म भी मेरे साथ होगा और पकड़ी भी मैं ही जाऊंगी. Who is responsible for this fear inside me? Who? If not the system? If not the political leadership of this country? Who is responsible for this fear in me? Where have I got this fear from? And who is going to ensure that I do not carry fear like that? Time and again, every single instance is just pointing towards that. And so it's a massive, colossal commentary on the absolutely broken justice system in our country today.
So, how do you deal with all this? How do you find the strength to move past it and lead however normal a life you can?
I'm a person of belief, Ashraf. I very strongly believe that wo subha kabhi to aayegi. I also believe that there is always justice after injustice. I believe that रात के बाद सुबह होती है. I believe that a person who commits something wrong has to face the repercussions in this life itself. I also believe that if somebody has been right all through, he or she will be rewarded in some way or the other. I've only kind of made myself understand one thing. There shouldn't be a hurry in my heart to see that day. I should do everything to make that day happen, but I should not be in a hurry to see it in my lifetime, maybe. Because वो तो होगा, वक्त बदलता है. Time doesn't remain the same. The times will change. The satisfaction inside me is that I'm on the right side of history. I'm not on the wrong side of history. And I can face myself every day in the mirror and I can sleep at night. That's all that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm often asked, like, what do you think is the future of the country? Is it dark or is it bleak? And I always say that, actually, along the lines of what you said, which is, I think long term future is great. I think short term future is tough. We're going to have to go through some things in the immediate future, maybe for a few years more. But let me change track slightly. You're passionate about Urdu and Urdu poetry. Does that help you deal with all of this?
Oh yes, I'm actually passionate about literature, and I had once seen this interview of Dilip Kumar, and he was asked by one of the journalists that, well, I know that you write Urdu poetry and you also read Urdu poetry, but you are such a fine actor. Why do you have to go into poetry writing? Why do you have to read poetry? I mean, you're an artist yourself. Now, one thing that he said, I think it just got it stuck with me. He said, every person should read poetry. You know why? Because that is the only opportunity, that is the only way a person would get to know himself or herself the way he was made by the God. When the world hadn't taken over, when I wasn't conscious of the rules and regulations and what was right and what was wrong. मेरी रूह क्या है अगर मुझे उससे मिलना है. I must read poetry because it doesn't talk about the world, right? It talks about the person. And if there is a certain thing that pulls me towards it, I'm like that. That's the real me. So that's the only chance of meeting the unfiltered me, one, and that's the only chance of dreaming. Poetry lets you dream. And what is this life without dreams? If I have nothing to look forward to, if I'm not imagining a world, which is a beautiful world, then it's a mundane life. Then I'm just breathing in and out and, just carrying on. I want to be alive every single moment of my life. And poetry gives me that hope. And it's true. There are so many theories. People say you manifest that and then it. I don't go there. All I'm saying is that when Faiz writes, "Dil ना उम्मीद तो नहीं, नाकाम ही तो है, लंबी है गम की शाम मगर शाम ही तो है." That's hope. And we all suckers of hope. That's exactly what it is. And if I say, जो मुश्किल दिन होते हैं, एक शाम में पीछे रह जाते हैं, एक शाम कुछ बदल जाता है और हम सब भूल जाते हैं. तो बस उस शाम से हम दूर हैं. वो शाम कब आ जाएगी हमें क्या पता, लेकिन बैठे बैठे तो नहीं आएगी. ये तो कहा गया ही है that you have to do your own bit. You've got to be alive in order to, have life around you. So poetry gives me that hope. It makes me feel good about myself. When I read poetry where there is a mention of how people have gone through atrocities and I get tears in my eyes, I feel alive. I feel that my heart is at the right place. When I, stand up to a person I love the most and say, you are wrong in thinking that that person should not be treated like that. We're all equals. I feel alive. I feel I'm not dead inside. I feel I'm not so impressionable that one person can come and say that, उनको दुश्मन देखना है. I feel alive when I constantly believe that I don't hate a single person in this world. I don't. I feel alive when I feel that the biggest of sinner, if that person, I see repentance in his or her eyes, I can forgive that person in a split second. I feel alive.
Yeah, in fact, Fairz's lines, "Dil na umeed nahi, naakaam hi to hai, lambi hai gam ki shaam, lekin shaam hi to hai," is exactly what I feel about India. It's what I said earlier, that I think the long-term future is bright. I think there's a lot of challenges that we'll have to face up to in the short term. And when you said that, who else is going to do it except for us? Who else is going to get us over the hurdles except for ourselves? Reminds me of Rahat Indori Saab's line, "Na hum safar na hum nashi se niklega, hamare pav ka kaata hum hi se niklega." So I'm not going to let you go unless you tell me who your favorite poets are and also recite a few lines, a few of your favorite lines.
Oh, okay. I wasn't prepared for this, but of course, my favorite poets. I mean, there's so many of them. Talk about Faiz, talk about Ghalib, talk about Iqbal, talk about Mir Taqi, talk about Bashir Badr, talk about Nasir Kazmi. There are so many of them. Talk about my own father. In fact, he's the reason I pushed myself to understand Urdu poetry a lot better, because right after the day he got retired, he started writing Urdu poetry. So, of course, he wanted me to recite them, and I wasn't reciting them to his satisfaction. So, आपका वजन कहाँ आना है, आप समझ ही नहीं रहे हैं तो आप क्या पढ़ेंगे. आवाज तो अच्छी थी, एहसास था ही नहीं उसमें, ना जज्बात थे. So I couldn't see, the dejection in his eyes. So I gave this assignment to myself that I'm going to understand this. And that's how I said that, okay, let me begin with Ghalib. If I can understand Ghalib, I can certainly understand my father's writing. That's how it all started, So I read a lot of Faiz, and I read a lot of Sahir, and I read a lot of Kefi and Ghalib and all that. But let me read something that my father wrote. And because we've been talking about India, we've talked about this nation, I'd like to read his lines. Every 15th August, 26th of January, we would always write Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan Hamara. But then things changed after 2014. And now it's all about what he has written. And I always write that.
But before you recite that, could you also please tell us his name?
His name is Uzair-e-Rahman, and his book is Yaadon Ke Aine Mein. So it's called Azadi Ka Haq, and it's by Uzair-e-Rahman. He writes, ये सच है अब आजाद हैं हम, मिट्टी से सुगंध ये आती है, ए जान से प्यारे हम वतनों, अभी काम बहुत कुछ बाकी है. आजादी पहली मंजिल थी, था हौसला सबने साथ दिया, कांटों से भरे इन रस्तों को जख्मी पैरों से पार किया, आगे देखा महबूब नजर, बैठा वो हमारा साकी है, ए जान से प्यारे हम वतनों, अभी काम बहुत कुछ बाकी है. ये देश बना कुर्बानी से, जाने कुर्बान हुई कितनी, आंखों में मुल्क का नक्शा था, परवाह उन्हें कब थी अपनी, तख्तों पर भी जब खड़े हुए, फूली देखा हर छाती है, ए जान से प्यारे हम वतनों, अभी काम बहुत कुछ बाकी है. जब ढोल नगाड़े बजते थे, हम जूझते थे बंद कमरों में, मंसूबों पर मंसूबे थे, गांवों के वो हों या शहरों में, हम थके नहीं बढ़ते ही चले, कि आगे हमारा साथी है, ए जान से प्यारे हम वतनों, अभी काम बहुत कुछ बाकी है. ये देश बना एक गुलदस्ता, बदनाम न होने देंगे इसे, मजहब के नाम पे बांटने का, जो काम करे बस रोको उसे, कर शुरू हुई खाना जंगी, फिर काहे की आजादी है जान से प्यारे हम वतनों, अभी काम बहुत कुछ बाकी है मुल्क बड़ा तो मसले हैं, हल होने हैं हल होंगे भी, दिल हारना शोभा देता नहीं, आए चाहे 100 मुश्किल भी, बस खोट नहीं हो नियत में, ये हुआ तो फिर बर्बादी है जान से प्यारे हम वतनों, अभी काम बहुत कुछ बाकी है। बस एक गुजारिश है तुमसे, जब कदम उठे हर कौम हो साथ, भूले मजहब और जाति को, हो दिल में देश हाथों में हाथ, तब पता चले इस दुनिया को, यहाँ अब भी नेहरू गांधी हैं, ए जान से प्यारे हम वतनों, अभी काम बहुत कुछ बाकी है।
बिल्कुल।
So this is one of my favorite nazms.
इट्स ब्यूटीफुल। काम बहुत कुछ बाकी है। एंड काम की बात निकली है तो फिर आपके काम की बात करें। तो ऑलरेडी आई हैव डिस्क्राइब्ड व्हाट यू डू, सो टेल अस व्हाट एल्स इज कमिंग अप।
I think I want to do, in this age of social media and in this age of snacky content and stuff, when people want to just get lots of views and millions of views and billions of views, and they want to go viral and all that. Thankfully, I have no such urge and thirst and hunger. I just want to stay at the best place in this world, and that is the other person's heart. I think that's all that I want to do. I think I don't know what I want to do. I just know what I don't have to do. And that list is pretty tight. किसी का दिल नहीं दुखाना. I don't have to hurt anybody intentionally. I want to really add value to somebody's life, not take anything out of that. Anything that I talk about. See, I do, these fun videos where we learn the language. I do series called P for pronunciation and G for grammar. Now, I'm extremely passionate about language, whether it's English or Urdu now. And I feel that it's by your language that you present yourself to the world. And why shouldn't we aspire to become the better version of ourselves? So I am not a teacher. I have not achieved it all, but I'm learning. And I'm saying, let's do a group study. Whatever I learn, I'm going to share the knowledge with you. And that's how we can, learn together. So each time they send me words, I know they're like really lazy to look it up in the dictionary. I'll do that work for you. And we learn pronunciations, we learn how to speak better English, because that's a global language and it's required. It basically makes or breaks your personality, unfortunately. And similarly, I do Urdu poetry, and I also know that it's a very tight community, people. But again, it's the language of the heart, and that's where we connect. So I wish to do things which people can relate to for a longer period of time, and every generation can actually relate to it. It might seem boring at this point of time, but someday they'll realize that. It has some value. It's not one of those which will come and go. Because I see people doing these content where they go viral and they sensational content and sexual and abusive content and stuff. It's all about themselves. They're doing it because they want traction. They're doing it because they want followers. I don't want to do something like this. I want to do something that stays, something that makes the person feel that it has added something to his life, not taken away. I also know that I cannot make people laugh, but I know I can make them smile. I can make them hopeful. Everybody goes through so many struggles in life. We can be there for each other, right? So my radio show, I'm called, there, the entire show is called Suno Saima. And I say this, कि इस सुनाने वाली दुनिया में कोई है जो आपकी सुनेगा. I'll be that one person. You call me, you want to talk about anything, I am going to listen to it. You will talk and I will listen, because I think that space is crunching. Everybody wants to just talk to somebody, not like talk with somebody. And So yeah, that little space that I have to talk to another person, I try and create that world, which is very dear to my heart, which only radio can make possible, where we can't see each other. That beautiful world where hearts connect. And I do not feel the need to see the other person. And I don't judge him or her. I don't need to know the name. I don't need to know the religion. I don't need to know whether the person is rich or poor. I don't need to know his history. I don't need to know his mentality. I will connect with his heart. And that's how he'll connect back. I want to create that space where we are not judgmental towards each other, where we just connect as human beings. And there's so much of hate around that little bit of love and the little bit of hope is all that we need. And if I can make that happen somehow, I'll be happy. And so that's what I try and do. And that's what you will constantly see.
So, Saima, that brings me to the question I ask all my guests at the end of the show. Why do you do this work?
Because that's me, is all that I can say. I do this because that's who I am. And I believe that's right. I really do believe that that is who I am. That is what makes me. And this is right too.
Saima, I cannot tell you how happy I have had you on the show and how moved I was by all that you said. Online abuse and threats against women go against the grain of our culture. But more importantly, I think the very basics of decency itself. Your voice is important. You are important. Don't ever stop speaking. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Ashraf. I really, really treasured every single second that I was in this show. And yeah, you gave me a lot of opportunity to talk my heart out. It was a very, very, very heart to heart chat. Really do appreciate. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you all for listening. Please visit allindiansmatter.in, that's ALLINDIANSMATTER.in, for more columns and audio podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter at Ashraf Engineer, that's ASHRAFENGINER, and All Indians Count, that's ALLINDIANSCOUNT. Search for the All Indians Matter page on Facebook. On Instagram, the handle is All Indians Matter. Email me at editor@allindiansmatter.in. Catch you again soon.